Hey, I'd like to welcome you to another episode of the Mission Matters Business Podcast, your source for all things business. My name is Adam Torres. You can follow me on Instagram at AskAdamTorres to keep up with my book releases, book tour schedule, signings, all that other good stuff. Always love to connect with you there. And as always, if you'd like to apply to become a co-author of one of my upcoming books, just head on over to the website, missionmatters.com, and click on Become an Author to apply. All right, so today I have Dr. Airies Davis on the line, and she's founder and CEO over at WorkforcEQi. Welcome to the show.
Thank you, Adam. Thanks for having me.
So excited to get into today's topic. I mean, I know you have some workshops coming up and some opportunities there, but first, before we get into that, I do want to get into what you're doing over at WorkforcEQi. So first, tell us a little bit more about your firm, please.
Absolutely. So I'll start by saying I always like to start with statistics, right, as a doctor in me. But if I look at research says that 80% of success in the workforce, so when you are in the workforce and you're going through day-to-day interactions, 80% of that is based on emotional intelligence, while only 20% is based on IQ, that intelligence quotient. So a lot of people ask me, so what's the difference? What is emotional intelligence? It's the sexy word that a lot of folks are throwing around in our atmosphere, but no one really kind of understands what it is. It simply means controlling the emotions of yourself and others, having that heightened sense of self-awareness, adaptability, being able to understand your emotions and how you are addressing potential issues and problems. So what I've done with WorkforcEQi is I've bridged the gap between workforce readiness and emotional intelligence. How do you have success in the workforce based on your workforce capabilities coupled with your emotional intelligence?
Oh, I love it. And I mean, I know I'm just an EQ guy. I was from the beginning. I mean, the first time I read Daniel Goldman's work or even Mitch Anthony, I mean, that was probably one of my first book on sales was Selling with Emotional Intelligence. And that's when oh my gosh, this is years ago, but I remember those. And once I kind of understood my aptitude and what I was at, I'm like, oh, I'm pretty good at this part of things. So I'm going to probably stay on the people side of things. And I guess that's part of the reason I ended up on a podcast, right? Who would have known, right? But I knew immediately. I'm like, oh no, this speaks to me.
You're ahead of the curve, Adam, for sure. And I often reference research from Daniel Goldman. So you are ahead of the curve.
Let's I don't want to assume that all of our listeners know what emotional intelligence is. So let's start with that basic primer. I think that would be helpful for them.
Sure. So I'll start with Goldman's definition since you teed me up for it, but it's broadly defined as an integration of emotions with intelligence. So it is the ability to cognitively recognize, evaluate, influence, and even manage your own and also the emotions of others.
I love it. And one of the things that I think makes this, for me, what made it so life-changing, really, it changed the course of everything, kind of understanding what that was, is I did get to understand myself, but then also understanding the reactions of what people were having towards me. I mean, once you can develop over time, the stuff doesn't happen overnight for everybody listening. It's not like, oh, I read this book and then I changed. No, it's a process, and it does take time, but when you do, or if you choose to go down this route to really develop that skill set, it does kind of become like a little bit of a superpower. Like you can really feel what's going on in the scenario on another level than maybe some others who haven't studied or made that conscious effort to go further in that direction.
Indeed, and I often speak about my own personal experiences. So coming from the world of HR, I say that's how I started. Dealing with human capital, dealing with people, understanding how they engage in the workforce. It's not necessarily something that everyone has that know-how, right? It's something that over time you develop. But imagine being in a situation where your boss comes in and he or she is yelling at you and you're stoic because you don't know what to do. A heightened sense of emotional intelligence gives you the competencies and the abilities to understand how to respond in that situation. So it's some of those soft skills, I like to say, the communication, the ability to critically think and be very apt on your feet in those heightened situations, so that you're not necessarily mirroring the reaction from that person in a negative way, but you're having agility versus being passive or aggressive. You're being more agile in your response.
I love it, and I like to say that the ultimate duo is you pair that work with maybe a little micro expression work with a Dr. Paul Ekman,
yes.
and then you've created quad being if you take the time to go down both of those rabbit holes at the same time. That I'm still stuck down, Airies, but I love it. It's fun. Let's switch it up. I want to get into your workshops and what you're doing there. So tell us a little bit more about that.
Sure. So I've worked and partnered with a variety of different clients across the country, primarily in the education space and also corporate spaces. So I've partnered with institutions such as the University of Southern California, Fight On, my alma mater, of course, and some other pretty prominent organizations and institutions around a particular problem that they may have with their organizational structure or workforce. So the people in their camp may not necessarily understand some of the day-to-day that is driving the organization's success. So what do you do in those scenarios? Do you arbitrarily make a decision that impacts the entire org, or do you take some time to really kind of understand your employees and what's driving their decision? And that's a part of what I've been doing. So I have partnered with any individual and or organization around solving those problems with their workforce, in this case, human capital, aka people management, and how do you address some of those heightened levels of emotional intelligence or problems that they may be having with their talent force.
That's awesome. And so what kind of feedback have you received on this? Because I always like to see what happens on the other end on these things, because I know when you go in there, it changes things.
Absolutely, and I think that's the operative word, Adam, the change. So you go in with someone. I'll say, for example, I worked with a large school district, and I was particularly focused on superintendent. I had a superintendent with a fixed mindset. And for those who don't know what that means, it's just simply someone who, this is how I do it, this is how I've always done it, and this is what works. Versus changing that person's mindset, again, going back to the intelligence of it all, to a growth mindset. So how do you grow with your decision? How do you make those decisions that are a little bit more informative across all platforms, all people, human capital, talent, workforce, all of these adjectives that stand for the same. So that was so transformative that the superintendent that had the fixed mindset was able to completely transform his thought process and turn the individuals who were literally terrified of him, and this is the true story, they now changed a lot of their practices, their infrastructure, to the extent that the org has gone through a complete revitalization. And now the superintendent has like these lunch and learns, these one-on-ones with teams, because he sees this as an area of growth and development. So very transformative. It takes some time sometimes, and then sometimes it's instantaneously. But that's one example most recently where there's been a direct impact from the workshop.
I love it, and I mean, this is the thing, is that people like this, just for in the superintendent's defense, like, he wasn't doing that intentionally. That was just, the pattern or whatever we want to call it, or the lack of, if we're being specific, emotional intelligence to the situation. But once he had that awareness, he was able to make changes, because I think we all as people want to do good work. He doesn't want people scared of him. He doesn't want that. He wants a nice, healthy workforce, and he wants people to grow. He wants people to be on board and to progress whatever their mission is, whatever they're aiming to deliver. So I think this emotional intelligence kind of layer just adds to what somebody's able to do and how they're able to communicate more effectively, and ultimately can really increase results in whatever the business or organization objectives are. So Airies, as you know, and as you can tell, I can talk to you about this all day long, but we're about out of time. So that being said, if somebody is listening to this and they want more information or to connect, what's the best way for them to reach out?
So 3 ways, Adam. So I'll start with my website, which is entitled Workforce, WORKFORC, capital EQI.com. You can also follow me on any of my social media platforms at Airies Davis, AIRIES Davis. And I am a LinkedIn guru. I often post a lot of my materials and free materials on LinkedIn. So love to have you follow me on any of those platforms.
Fantastic. Well, hey, Airies, awesome having you on the show today and having a discussion on both your workshops, emotional intelligence, all the great stuff that we talked about, so great stuff there. And to the audience, as always, thank you for tuning in. Hope you got a lot of value out of this. Hope you had a lot of fun listening because we had fun making this for you. If you did, don't forget, subscribe to the podcast. If you're watching this on our YouTube channel, Mission Matters Business, subscribe to the YouTube channel, and let's take the conversation over there. Let's not let it end here. Definitely leave us some comments on the video and what you thought, and any other kind of questions you had there. And Airies, thanks for coming on the show.